procedural, maybe a few statements about regional security and economic growth. But what came out of ECOWAS headquarters this time was anything but routine. In a sharp turn, the West African bloc announced it was preparing for what could become the most serious internal conflict the region has seen in decades. The target? The alliance of Sahel states, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, three nations that have defied the rules, turned their backs on ECOWAS, and created their path. Now ECOWAS wants to pull them back in, by any means necessary. For the first time since their withdrawal earlier this year, the tone from ECOWAS has shifted from disappointment to open hostility. The new leadership of the bloc, under mounting pressure from international partners, has publicly declared that it will not tolerate what it describes as unconstitutional military regimes. But more importantly, it has now invoked the possibility of activating its standby force, a regional military tool designed for peacekeeping, but now being eyed for confrontation.
Welcome to Stand Up Africa, where we break down real stories, real news, and real voices from across the continent. If you care about Africa's future, want to stay informed, and hear what mainstream media often misses, you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button and join a growing community that stands up for truth, context, and African perspective. Disclaimer: the content on this channel is for informational and educational use only. We use credible public sources and verified facts to bring you context and clarity. Stand Up Africa does not promote hate, misinformation, or political bias. Our mission is to keep you informed, responsibly and respectfully.
No country was named outright in the announcement, but the message was clear. The Sahel Alliance is officially in ECOWAS's crosshairs, and that's not all. ECOWAS is also demanding a full return to constitutional order, meaning immediate transitions to civilian governments, reinstatement of suspended elections, and the reintegration of these nations into the bloc. These conditions aren't being presented as negotiations, they're ultimatums. The timeline? Undefined, but implied to be soon. If ignored, the consequences, ECOWAS says, will be significant. This wording may seem vague, but in West African diplomacy, it's as close to a threat as it gets. Meanwhile, in capitals across the Sahel, the mood couldn't be more different. Instead of fear, there's focus. AES leadership hasn't blinked. They've escalated. A fresh joint declaration from the three governments responded with a firm warning. Any military intervention by ECOWAS will be considered an act of aggression not against one, but against all three. Their mutual defense pact, signed in September 2023, is now more than symbolic. It's the backbone of a military and political alliance that's preparing for what it calls the next phase of the struggle. That phrase, the next phase, has raised eyebrows among analysts. It implies that what's happening is not just a political dispute, but part of a broader transformation. And for the AES states, this transformation is about sovereignty. They've rejected ECOWAS not only on procedural grounds, but because they see it as compromised, too slow to act, too tied to foreign donors, and too comfortable with undemocratic behavior when it suits the right allies. From their perspective, ECOWAS has become a gatekeeper for Western influence, more interested in managing African countries than empowering them. But ECOWAS, too, is under pressure. Western partners, particularly France, the EU, and the US, have leaned heavily on the bloc to restore order in the Sahel. With French troops already pushed out of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, and Russian influence creeping in through arms deals and diplomatic missions, the West views ECOWAS as its last line of leverage. A complete collapse of ECOWAS authority would not only damage its image, but it could permanently shift the balance of power in the region. So now, both sides are dug in. ECOWAS has made its demands. AES has rejected them outright. The use of military force is no longer a theoretical discussion. It's an option on the table. And yet, the people of West Africa, especially in the Sahel, are not calling for compromise. Many are calling for resistance. They believe they've already been under siege, not by tanks, but by poverty, corruption, and decades of outside control. This is no longer a test of diplomacy. It's a clash of visions. So what made these three countries so bold? Bold enough to take on a whole regional bloc? Let's pause for a second to say, big thank you to the Black Culture Diary community, where Black voices, stories, and legacies are preserved and amplified. By becoming a member, you're not just supporting the channel, you're becoming part of a powerful cultural movement. Let's continue. The decision by the Sahel trio to break from ECOWAS wasn't an overnight rebellion. It was the result of years of growing frustration, broken trust, and a deepening belief that the bloc had outlived its usefulness. For Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, the final withdrawal wasn't just a diplomatic maneuver. It was a declaration of independence from a system they saw as deeply rigged, structurally unjust, and chronically incapable of protecting African interests. The roots of the rupture go back to the early 2010s, when insurgencies first began overwhelming parts of the Sahel. Entire regions were lost to jihadist groups while state institutions collapsed. ECOWAS, despite its name and its budget, was slow to act. Year after year, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger begged for coordinated support. But what they got was bureaucracy, foreign lectures, and delayed resolutions. Weapons and funding were conditional. Counter-terrorism operations were piecemeal. Troop deployments, if they came at all, often arrived after civilians had already fled or been massacred. To make matters worse, ECOWAS was increasingly viewed as a club for entrenched elites who adjusted democratic rules to stay in power. Guinea, Côte d'Ivoire, and Togo, leaders in these countries, altered their constitutions to extend their reigns and faced little more than symbolic disapproval from ECOWAS. Yet when military officers in Mali or Burkina Faso stepped in, often after elected governments failed to maintain basic services, they were immediately sanctioned, isolated, and condemned. To many Sahelians, this exposed a hypocrisy too blatant to ignore. ECOWAS protected power, not people. Then came the pandemic, followed by economic collapse. Corruption soared, food insecurity deepened, and youth unemployment exploded. And while the crisis spread, ECOWAS leaders continued to gather in luxury hotels, issue press releases, and do little to address the realities on the ground. For young people in Ouagadougou, Bamako, or Niamey, ECOWAS wasn't just irrelevant, it was offensive. It had become a symbol of everything that was broken in post-independence African governance. Aloof, foreign-aligned, and structurally divorced from the suffering of everyday people. By 2022, military takeovers in all three countries marked a major shift in regional politics. But what happened next was even more unprecedented. Instead of isolating one another, the Sahel states moved closer together. They began holding joint security dialogues, launching intelligence-sharing platforms, and most importantly, listening to their populations. For the first time in decades, citizens were hearing leaders speak of sovereignty not as a slogan, but as a governing principle. This internal transformation culminated in the creation of the Alliance of Sahel States (AES) in 2023. Not just as a military compact, but as an ideological alternative. The AES leadership wasn't hiding its intentions. It framed its existence as a breakaway from a neo-imperial system built to preserve dependency and foreign leverage. "We are no longer children," one Burkina official said during a press briefing. "We will not be scolded or instructed. We are building our architecture." When ECOWAS demanded that the three countries reverse course and adopt a 6-month transition timeline, the response was swift and brutal. The proposal was described as insulting, detached from reality, and completely out of touch with the aspirations of the Sahel. The AES governments confirmed their exit in no uncertain terms and promised not just withdrawal, but replacement. Plans for a Sahel central bank, common tariffs, and cross-border infrastructure were set in motion. This was not a pause in engagement. It was a full reboot. By choosing to leave ECOWAS, the Sahel trio effectively chose to face the unknown, possibly even war, rather than remain trapped in what they viewed as a rigged game. Their gamble wasn't just about political ideology. It was born of exhaustion. These were countries that had been left to burn while the region's leadership watched. They had nothing left to lose and everything to rebuild. But none of this explains why their bold defiance didn't just survive, it thrived. Now we'll uncover the man who gave this movement its face, its voice, and its fire, Captain Ibrahim Traore. By the way, we have launched merch that honors the African leaders who are taking a stand for Africa. Check them out, to show you also stand with loyal sons of Africa, no matter where you are. To understand why the alliance of Sahel states hasn't collapsed under pressure, but instead grown stronger, you need to understand the man at its center, Captain Ibrahim Traore. In just a few years, he's gone from an unknown artillery officer to the loudest voice in a continental rebellion. Traore isn't just Burkina Faso's president, he's the embodiment of a defiant new era. One that rejects begging bowls, foreign masters, and recycled promises of democracy without dignity. When Traore seized power in a dramatic coup in 2022, many expected yet another military strongman seeking to prolong his rule. But what emerged instead was something altogether different. Young, sharp, and deeply ideological, Traore began speaking a language West Africa hadn't heard in decades, one rooted in Thomas Sankara's legacy, but sharpened by modern anger. He spoke of resource control, generational betrayal, and the necessity of African unity, not as rhetorical flourishes, but as immediate priorities. What made him dangerous, at least to his adversaries, was not that he took power, but that he used it for things the people wanted. Under Traore, Burkina Faso began shifting visibly. Military reforms prioritized defending villages instead of chasing insurgent groups into endless desert ambushes. Nationalized programs began reallocating mining revenues toward local development. Within a year, free health clinics opened across urban neighborhoods. Subsidized housing projects launched. Even schools once shuttered by war were reopened under joint civilian-military programs. These weren't utopian dreams, they were tangible policies. And for ordinary Burkinabe, it felt like someone had finally stopped talking and started doing. But it wasn't just policy that made Traore a movement, it was his voice. His speeches didn't read like bureaucratic scripts. He didn't speak in the polished language of Western-trained technocrats. He spoke with fury, with conviction, with the cadence of a soldier talking to comrades, not subjects. Our resources belong to us, not to France, not to America, not to the IMF, he once declared in a nationally televised address that spread like wildfire online. In another, he warned, "They don't want Africa to stand. They want us divided, dependent, dying quietly. But we are no longer silent." That voice began echoing beyond Burkina Faso. Crowds in Mali started waving his face on banners. Youth in Niger shared his speeches like rallying cries. Even protesters in Senegal and Chad invoked his name when denouncing corruption and foreign meddling. Traore almost unintentionally became a Pan-African icon, not through charisma alone, but because he articulated what millions had been thinking but few dared say out loud. His critics, both at home and abroad, accuse him of populism. They say he's concentrating power, shrinking space for opposition, and gambling with Burkina Faso's future. But Traore's supporters see something different. A man who walked into a burning house and started building, brick by brick, with his own hands. Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. What makes him even more unique is his refusal to play by the old diplomatic rules. He doesn't flatter international donors. He doesn't tailor his language to soothe Western allies. Instead, he has turned toward countries that treat Africa as a partner, not a project. Russia, China, Turkey, and even Iran. He is unafraid to redraw alliances, shut down Western embassies, or challenge institutions like ECOWAS head-on. In Traore's worldview, survival means severing the last strings of post-colonial control. And if confrontation is the price, so be it. When ECOWAS threatened intervention, Traore didn't call for negotiations. He invoked the Mutual Defense Pact. When international observers criticized the democratic delays, he pointed to roads being built, children being fed, and towns being defended. His legitimacy, he argues, doesn't come from foreign endorsement, but from results. And results for now are working in his favor. Traore has become more than a president. He's become the gravitational center of a bloc willing to go to war for its sovereignty. But for ECOWAS and its Western partners, this makes him not just a rebel, but a threat to the entire post-independence political order. So what is ECOWAS trying to protect, and why is it failing? As Captain Ibrahim Traore and the Alliance of Sahel states galvanize a new movement in the heart of Africa, ECOWAS finds itself backed into a corner, not by tanks or coups, but by a deeper crisis: legitimacy. Once viewed as the regional engine of peace and democratic progress, the economic community of West African states now faces a far more uncomfortable accusation: that it has become a hollow shell, defending not democracy, but dependency. To many across the Sahel and beyond, ECOWAS represents a club of presidents who speak the language of democracy while practicing the politics of protectionism. Behind the facade of multilateralism, the bloc has long been accused of turning a blind eye to electoral fraud, constitutional manipulation, and elite corruption, as long as the governments involved maintained good relations with foreign partners, particularly former colonial powers. This double standard became especially glaring in recent years. When leaders in countries like Côte d'Ivoire and Togo pushed through third-term bids by amending their constitutions, ECOWAS offered only mild concern: no sanctions, no threats, no standby force on standby. But when soldiers in Mali or Burkina Faso stepped in, claiming to rescue their nations from dysfunction, they were instantly punished with sweeping economic restrictions and political isolation. This inconsistency hasn't gone unnoticed by ordinary West Africans. In places like Bamako and Ouagadougou, the view is clear: ECOWAS isn't about defending people, it's about defending the status quo. And that status quo, they say, is one where Africa remains dependent on foreign donors, accepts external military presence, and follows prescriptions from Paris, Brussels, or Washington without complaint. Behind closed doors, even ECOWAS insiders are now quietly admitting the bloc is in trouble. With Nigeria battling its economic crisis, Ghana distracted by internal debt, and Senegal facing a volatile political landscape, the regional leadership appears fractured. Some member states are growing wary of escalating conflict with the Sahel trio, especially as public opinion shifts in their favor. The loudest voices pushing for confrontation, many believe, aren't African governments, but foreign embassies urging ECOWAS to contain the revolutionary wave. This leads to a deeper question: whose interests is ECOWAS protecting? A closer look at recent history reveals a pattern. The bloc's security and democracy frameworks were built with heavy influence from European powers and international institutions. From peacekeeping protocols to economic sanctions mechanisms, much of ECOWAS's operational capacity is funded externally. Military training, intelligence sharing, and election monitoring are all tethered to Western partnerships. This dependence creates pressure. It distorts neutrality. And in moments like this, it exposes fault lines. For ECOWAS to act against Traore and the AES is not just about restoring civilian rule, it's about maintaining a system where Africa's political direction is still closely monitored and in some cases dictated by outside interests. The idea of three countries rejecting that system outright, pivoting toward Russia, China, and their Pan-African alliance, represents an existential threat not just to ECOWAS's credibility, but to the influence networks built through it. Yet even now, the bloc seems torn between reasserting control and avoiding escalation. Despite the hard talk and warnings of military intervention, ECOWAS has not acted on its threats. Why? Analysts point to two major reasons: public backlash and military risk. First, public sentiment is not on ECOWAS's side in these breakaway states. Intervention might trigger widespread resistance. Images of West African troops invading fellow African nations would damage ECOWAS's image irreparably. Second, any military action risks spiraling into an uncontrollable regional conflict, especially with the AES's Mutual Defense Pact and external support from Russia and others. ECOWAS, it seems, is unsure how far it's willing or able to go. The bloc is stuck in a dangerous paradox. If it intervenes militarily, it risks a civil war that could fracture West Africa. If it doesn't, it effectively legitimizes the AES exit and opens the door for other frustrated states to follow. What ECOWAS faces now isn't just a rebellion, it's a referendum on its relevance. And while it hesitates, the people of West Africa are making their own choices, and they have rejected ECOWAS. So, do you think ECOWAS threats will work? Why are they even trying? Let us know in the comment section. Was that stupid or calculated? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.
In this episode, we'll be looking at how the recent trip to Ghana by the Malian transitional president has opened up new fronts in the battle between the military junta and Mali and ECOWAS. Did Ghana really join the Tropa? And what does this mean for the sub-region? Welcome once again to Inside Story. I'm your host. Before we start, please take the time to subscribe if you haven't already. And if you do, please like and share it with friends and family. You can also interact with us on social media. We're going to be talking about the recent trip to Ghana by the leader of the military junta in Mali. Now, this visit comes at a very delicate moment for the Economic Community of West African States, or ECOWAS. Remember that the organization had threatened military intervention in Niger after its members attempted to oust President Mohamed Bazoum from office. Now, following the failed coup in Niger, many had predicted that the country would descend into chaos. But the people of Niger have remained resolute and peaceful despite the threat of war. We should recall that when this crisis erupted, the Malian government expressed solidarity with the people of Niger and refused to recognize the legitimacy of the new regime led by General Ibrahim Traore. However, just when it seemed that Mali had taken sides, they now seem to be forging alliances with both Ghana and Burkina Faso. On August 22nd, Malian President Colonel Assimi Goïta traveled to the capital of Ghana, Accra, for official talks. He was received by a red carpet ceremony and 21-gun salute, which is usually reserved for visiting heads of state and government. This visit came shortly after he visited Burkina Faso on August 17th to meet with the country's interim president, Captain Ibrahim Traore. So why did Mali's junta leader pay a surprise visit to Ghana? Well, the answer lies in the evolving dynamics of West African politics, particularly concerning the recent crisis within ECOWAS. You will recall that in July, there were reports that Ghana and Mali had agreed to establish a joint military force. But this was dismissed by the Ghanaian government. Nonetheless, the agreement was reached during a visit by Ghana's National Security Advisor, Nana Asani, to Bamako, where he held talks with Malian authorities. Now this agreement seems to have been formalized during Colonel Gaddafi's visit to Accra. But what exactly is the purpose of this new military alliance between Mali and Ghana? It's no secret that Ghana has long been critical of ECOWAS sanctions on Mali and Burkina Faso. In fact, President Nana Akufo-Addo, who is the current chairman of ECOWAS, has consistently opposed any military intervention in Mali since the first coup in August 2020. Ghana has also abstained from voting on resolutions that would see the economic and financial sanctions slapped on Mali and Burkina Faso. Ghana is taking a more diplomatic approach to resolving the crises in these countries. Unlike some other ECOWAS members such as Nigeria, Senegal, Ivory Coast, and Benin, who have closed their borders to both Mali and Burkina Faso, Ghana has maintained its borders open, citing humanitarian concerns and the free movement of people as enshrined in the ECOWAS protocol. For instance, while Nigeria shut its land borders to its northern neighbors, it also banned the export of petrol to Mali and Burkina Faso, which has led to severe fuel shortages in these landlocked countries. However, Ghana has kept its border with Burkina Faso open, allowing the free flow of trade and commerce between them. This decision has not gone down well with some segments of the Ghanaian population, particularly those in the northern part of the country, who feel that the government is sacrificing them at the expense of Malians and Burkinabe traders. Despite the mixed feelings among Ghanaians over their government's position on the Malian and Burkinabe crises, President Akufo-Addo has defended his stance, arguing that dialogue and not sanctions is the best way forward. He stated that closing Ghana's borders will not help resolve the problems and will only hurt ordinary citizens. Furthermore, Ghana has refused to participate in any military intervention in Mali. In fact, Ghana has never participated in any military operations of ECOWAS. Despite being a founding member of ECOWAS and a major contributor to peacekeeping missions in Africa, Ghana has consistently refused to send troops for military interventions in the sub-region. For example, during the crisis in the Gambia in 2016, when a regional force known as the West African Task Force was assembled to intervene, Ghana did not contribute any troops. Nigeria provided the largest contingent, followed by Senegal, while other countries like Togo, Mali, Benin, and Burkina Faso each contributed between 300 and 1,000 soldiers. So you see, Ghana's position on military intervention is quite clear. They do not want to get involved in any military operations in the sub-region. It is against this backdrop that many have viewed the recent visit by Mali's junta leader as a potential game-changer for West Africa. During a joint press conference after his meeting with President Akufo-Addo, Colonel Goita expressed his gratitude for Ghana's efforts in seeking a peaceful resolution to the crisis in Mali and Burkina Faso. He said, quote, "We talked about how to improve relations between our two countries. And we talked about the situation in our region, especially the sanctions imposed on Mali and Burkina Faso. We believe that Ghana has a leading role to play in the search for a solution to this problem because it is a country that respects the sovereignty of nations." He added, quote, "We will support any initiative aimed at lifting these sanctions, which are affecting the populations of our two countries. The sanctions affect the whole region and not just Mali and Burkina Faso." These statements by the Malian leader demonstrate a clear shift in the regional dynamics, as Mali seeks closer ties with countries that share similar perspectives on the crisis. Ghana, for its part, has welcomed the cooperation with Mali, emphasizing the need for regional integration and cooperation to address common challenges. President Akufo-Addo stated, quote, "It is my belief that the problems of our region can only be solved together and not by individual countries on their own. So anything that brings countries of our region closer together is good news." He further explained that Ghana supports the process of dialogue initiated by Algeria, in which other countries like Libya and Nigeria are associated with the aim of finding a solution to the Malian crisis. President Akufo-Addo emphasized that although he disagrees with some aspects of Mali's internal governance, he believes that the solution lies in the region coming together to address the issue. The strengthening of ties between Mali and Ghana holds significant implications for the future of ECOWAS. Ghana's decision to cooperate with Mali, particularly in the areas of defense and security, could potentially lead to a realignment of forces within the organization. Moreover, the cooperation could also foster closer economic ties between the two countries, which may have wider ramifications for regional trade and integration. As the standoff between ECOWAS and the military juntas in Mali and Burkina Faso persists, the support of countries like Ghana could embolden the juntas to resist external pressures. Additionally, the cooperation between Mali and Ghana could serve as a platform for broader diplomatic efforts aimed at resolving the crisis in the region. Furthermore, the visit by Mali's junta leader serves as a reminder of the complex web of alliances and interests that shape regional politics in West Africa. Traditional geopolitical boundaries are being redrawn as countries prioritize their own security and development agendas. However, it is important to acknowledge that the situation remains fluid and unpredictable. The coming weeks will be crucial in determining the trajectory of events and the ultimate outcome of this evolving crisis. While the cooperation between Mali and Ghana signifies a shift in regional dynamics, it also underscores the urgency for meaningful dialogue and compromise among all stakeholders. A peaceful resolution to the crisis in Mali and Burkina Faso is essential for the stability and prosperity of the entire West African region. Nonetheless, the Malian president's visit to Ghana has indeed opened up a new front in the battle between the military junta in Mali and ECOWAS. It remains to be seen how this will play out in the coming days. What do you think about the cooperation between Mali and Ghana? Do you think it will escalate tensions within ECOWAS? Or do you think it will encourage dialogue and compromise among the conflicting parties? Let us know what you think in the comments section below. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends and family. And don't forget to subscribe so that you never miss any of our videos.
That's the latest on this developing story. Thank you for staying with us here on Stand Up Africa. We'll continue to follow the updates and bring you verified information as it unfolds. For more news that matters to Africa and stories that speak for us, make sure to subscribe, share, and stay informed. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware.